RodneyAbrams.com. Today we're talking with Nicholas Abrams, who's a certified financial planner and CEO of AJW Financial Partners in Baltimore, Maryland. Nick, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Thank you, Rodney. I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I am great. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is funding for your children's education. Okay,
Okay.
um, should people sacrifice saving for retirement? It's sort of a two-pronged question. Should they sacrifice saving for retirement and to instead save for college tuition? And the second part is a lot of people raid their 401ks to pay tuition. Give us some advice on that topic.
So, Rodney, I would first of all say no, you should not sacrifice your retirement for sending your kids to college. And here's why. One of the reasons why people want to send their kids to college so they get a better life, they're able to provide for their, families and move on and better the next generation. What tends to happen is, when people sacrifice themselves or sacrifice their retirement, you start a cycle where later on down the road, the kids who you've done all this to better their life have to come back and take care of the parents, which now puts a financial burden on the kids. So it really negates all the planning that you did to help, further your kids along, because now they're tied the financial burden of helping you out later on. So, that's something definitely and I've seen a lot happen in my career with people, and I try to discourage that. The other thing is rating your retirement accounts to send your kids to college. We'd like to say that's a last minute resort and really discourage that as well, because what you lose is that time value of money. That money that's been in your retirement account for 10, 15, or 20 years has been earning interest, compounding interest. And once you pull that money out, you lose all of that time and all of that interest, and it's hard to make that up for retirement. And so that can be a trap that will hurt you more than it even helps your kids later on.
Okay, so what are some of the alternatives to not contributing to your 401k or rating your 401k?
So, I always tell parents, you have to have the hard and realistic conversation. We've taken this thing of college and we've putting a six-figure financial decision in the hands of an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old. So there are a lot of alternatives. One, look at a cheaper school, especially an in-state school to help pay for college. Look at different grants that are out there, scholarships that are out there. There are a lot of scholarships out there that go unclaimed each year because people aren't applying for them, or some people don't even know about them. And then, try to save as much as you can for college, and look at, work study programs, look at community colleges. I know here in Maryland, where I live at, they're looking at programs where you can go to community college for free for 2 years. So those are different ways that you can help with the cost of college instead of going out and taking out a large amount of loans or raiding your retirement account or reducing your contributions to your retirement account to pay for it.
Okay, are you a fan of 529 plans? And so explain what they are first.
So 529 plans, there are a mechanism to save for college. They're one of many options out there. What it allows you to do is contribute to the plan. Each state has their own plan. So depending on the state that you're in, there could be some tax advantages to contributing to that state's particular plan. And one of the things about a 529, it used to be strictly for college education, but it has now been changed, modified that the funds can be used for K through 12 education as well. So as long as you're meeting the parameters of using the money for educational purposes, the money comes out tax free. The downside to a 529 plan is if you need to use the funds for something other than education, then there are penalties on the interest that is earned in the account. But it is a great way to start saving for retirement. And it's one of many different ways of doing that.
Okay, let's go back to 401ks for a minute. Okay, now we talked about one mistake people can make is not contributing and instead focusing on college tuition. But what are some of the other mistakes that you've seen? You've been practicing for how many years?
Oh my goodness, 21 years.
Okay, so what are some of the, and you've seen a lot of mistakes in 21
I've
years.
seen a
So,
lot of
so,
mistakes.
so what kind of mistake, what, are the most common mistakes you see people make when it comes to 401ks?
So, it's interesting, Rodney. Retirement planning has changed so much over the years. In my industry, we've kind of stuck on the same model that, you do the same thing and it's going to work. And retirement is a lot different. So, one of the things that I tell people, your 401k should not be your only mechanism for saving for retirement. Um, but looking at the 401k plan, because there's some great things about it. One is to make sure that you're contributing, a amount that at least covers the match that your employer provides. So, for an example, if your employer provides a 5% match, you need to contribute at least 5% or whatever that number is to make sure you're getting that full match. Because if not, you're leaving money on the table. Another thing to take a look at, and a mistake that I see people make is everyone kind of contributes to the pre-tax option because they want the tax deduction now. But what they don't understand is, that money, you're now accumulating a large sum of money that in retirement is all taxable. And the thought used to be that tax rates would go down or you would pay less in taxes in retirement. We're not seeing that now with today's situation and today's clients. So taking a look at, most plans offer what's called a Roth option. That should be something that a lot of people should take a look at so that you do have a bucket of money that is considered tax free or potentially tax free to draw from in retirement. And the biggest thing is your 401k should not be your personal bank or savings account, which means you should not be going in every time there's a little small emergency. You should not be going in taking money out. You definitely want to look at trying to have that money grow. And more importantly, if you are leaving different companies, you want to take your money with you so you can keep track of it. Because a lot of times companies will change providers, and different things will change, and people sometimes lose track of the money or have a hard time really managing their investments if they have 5 or 6 different plans from previous employers.
Okay, so let's go back a minute. Can you explain briefly the difference between a traditional 401k or IRA and a Roth
Mhm.
in terms of the tax advantages?
Okay, so the traditional option, sure.
Okay.
So the traditional option, when we look at that, so let's take an example. Somebody makes $100,000 per year, and they put in $10,000 in the traditional or the pre-tax option in their 401k plan. That reduces their taxable income by $10,000. So now they're only paying income taxes on essentially 90,000 of income. So you get the upfront tax break. The caveat to that is that money's been tax deferred, it's growing tax deferred. When you go to withdraw that money in retirement to live off of or to supplement your income, all of that money is now taxable income to you. So you pay the taxes when you take the money out. The Roth option, same scenario. You make $100,000, you put $10,000 into the Roth option. Your taxable income is still $100,000, so it does not give you that immediate upfront tax break. The money still grows tax deferred, but what happens at retirement, if all the conditions are met, that money comes out tax free. So that's the big difference, whether you want to get the tax break now or if you want to pay the taxes now and then have a bucket of money or a pot of money available to you that is tax free in retirement.
Okay, and what do you because I get asked often, what percentage of my money should go in the traditional 401k and what percentage should go in a Roth? How do you answer that?
So what I tell people is, first of all, you need to talk to your tax advisor and see what your tax situation is, because everybody has a different tax situation. Usually what you say is, if you're in a situation where you get a huge refund each year after you file your taxes, then you can shift more money from the traditional to the Roth option. If you're in a situation where you owe or you break even every year, then you do want to just talk to your tax provider and have them run the numbers to see what is the ideal percentage for you, because you don't want to be in a situation where you make a change and it hurts you at the end of the year.
Okay, so let's move on to the final topic I wanted to talk to you about, and that's one. There are so many cases where husbands and wives don't talk about, about finances and
Or anything.
or anything, right? um, and there are actually cases where only one of them talks to a financial advisor.
Yes.
So say why don't husbands and wives communicate about finances? I'm asking you as your psychologist part of financial planning now.
And somebody who's been married 16 years.
But whose wife is also an accountant. So
Yes.
um, and sort of tagged onto that, how involved should your children be in when it comes? I mean, how much do you want to tell you? So, it's African Americans especially keep secret. They don't want their
Yes.
children to know
Yes. Yes.
how much they make. But I've talked to some people who say, or, actually I talked to a business owner who said her mother basically made her sit down and write the checks and showed her how much she made. So,
Yeah.
so she knew not to ask for anything because she knew that it was nothing, right? So let's start with communications. How important it is for spouses to discuss and talk about finances and financial planning.
It's very important. So I will say this, like I said, as a husband, my wife and I have been married. It'll be 16 years in June. We have two sons. And like I said, Leah, she's a CPA. It's very important to talk about finances, but it's one of the hardest topics for most people to talk about, because, you know, there's this, we talk about financial literacy a lot. And, being able to recognize everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. So there's one spouse who might handle a lot of the finances because that's their particular strength. They're gifted in that. And the other spouse doesn't. But what we see happens a lot, if something happens to that spouse that was handling all the finances, and the spouse that survives is now left in the dark, has no idea where anything is, how to handle anything, what the financial situation is. That's a devastating experience. You're going through a loss, you're going through a mourning process, and then trying to figure out, okay, where are the bills, which bills were paid, how are they paid from which account. It's a nightmare. And I've seen spouses have to go through that. I've seen spouses pull out a yellow sheet of paper, like, this is all he left. This was his accounting. This was her accounting. This is how they paid the bills. I have no idea where anything is. So it's very important to at least have that conversation about what's going on with the money, because it helps financially if something happens, and it just helps for a healthy marriage, to have that communication. Bringing in the kids, that is something that's important because it really teaches them financial literacy and how to handle their finances. One of the big things in this country, especially the African American community, is the lack of financial literacy or knowledge. And it is something that we don't talk about a lot. But having kids involved in the family discussions and the budget meetings, having them say, okay, this is how much money we bring in, this is how much goes out to the bills, this is what was left over. So it brings things in context because, a lot of kids, they just know they ask for something and it appears. They don't know how it appears, what the parents have to do to get it. And so it starts to bring that responsibility for them to say, hey, there's not an infinite pot of money. This is how we provide for the family. And these are things that you should take as you're looking at your family and getting older. These are some of the conversations of ways you should have in money. So definitely those conversations, Rodney, are extremely important.
Okay. Finally, anything you want to add? Any parting advice?
So, I would say a couple things. We had talked about the 401ks earlier. And one thing, topic that comes up a lot are people looking to start a business. Should they go ahead and utilize their retirement plans for that? And, right, when you look at the numbers at first, it's always a short no. Because you look at, there was some statistics I saw that 20% of small businesses fail in the first year, and by year five, 50% of them have failed. But you also look at today's world. We're not in the world where you go to a company and you stay there, you're 30 years, you get your gold watch, and you get a nice retirement package. That world has changed. So what I do try to tell people, if you have to use those funds to go ahead and sustain starting a business, you want to talk to a professional about it because there's different strategies in place that can help you do that and can save you a lot in taxes and a lot of just heartache down the line. So whenever you're making any financial decision, I always encourage people talk to some professional about it because there are different strategies that you might not be aware of that your advisor could know that can help you with that.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time today. Again, Nicholas Abrams, Certified Financial Planner and CEO of AJW Financial Partners in Baltimore, Maryland. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Rodney.